For most of my life I've worked as a minister, but the large part of that time I haven't been a minister in one church. I've been a minister in one church part-time, and the rest of the time I've worked for other churches. And I have visited many churches, many ministers across Australia and a lesser number across New Zealand. And one thing that I noticed is that the ministers I met, many were not very energetic, many were not very imaginative, but they all were extremely polite. Gentle Jesus, meek and mild, we know that image, and it's the image often depicted in art of Jesus being just so wonderfully nice, particularly to children. Is that really a picture of who he was? Jesus was often angry, and we ignore that. We know he was angry with Peter when Peter said, "You don't have to go and die." We know he was angry with the established church of his day, the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and he called them whited sepulchres. That means whitewashed tombs, looking so good outside in the cemetery, but inside full of dead men's bones. And what about when he cleansed the temple? How he turned over the tables of the money changers. Did he go to them and say, "Excuse me, would you mind if I flipped your table? I'm making a very big statement here. I don't mean you any harm." In anger, he turned over their tables. He took cords and made a whip and drove out the animals and the people trading in the temple. He said, "You're coming between God and his people. You're exploiting them." So I just want to make the point that Jesus was often angry. I always felt a little bit uneasy or even offended at the way ministers are depicted in films. And if you think about comedy, Monty Python and that well, we really look ridiculous. And I think rightly so. It's not just that they're being funny, they're being funny about something that everybody knows, and that the main thing about clergy is that they're polite and they're nice. And I'd say that they've actually got the disease of terminal niceness. I've been reading a wonderful book, The Bible Through Asian Eyes, and it depicts and reproduces the art of many Asian artists who are also Christian. Well, behind me is the picture of the angry Christ, and that is a piece of work from Lino Pontibon, and he is from the Philippines. And he is making the point, far from gentle Jesus, meek and mild, that Jesus can be angry, and his anger can be directed towards us. And in a moment, Pauline will read a marvelous poem by W.S. Rendra from Indonesia, which takes up this theme. We love Jesus and we know he loves us, but we must not imagine that he's always pleased with us, because we have benefited greatly from the Christian faith in many ways. The Christian faith was a primary driver of the British Empire, and the British Empire made people like me, my race, rich at the cost of exploiting others. And now we live comfortable lives in this lovely, prosperous country. But we must not imagine that this is the way the world lives. And we must not imagine that Jesus is pleased when we settle back into our comfort zone and forget about others. The Christ that we follow is also a Christ of passion, and sometimes that passion is directed in anger to people who should know better, people who are following him, but really relaxing in the good life. Something to think about this Lent.
This painting of the angry Christ became popular in many parts of the world, especially among the young. It counteracts the image of gentle Jesus, meek and mild, with the reminder that Jesus also became angry at injustice. And now, here, some of the anger at injustice directed towards our privileged societies and our privileged churches, our privileged lifestyles. Here it is. Because we eat roots and flour piles up in your warehouses, because we live all cramped up and your space is so abundant, so we are not allies. Because we are soiled and you are shiny bright, because we feel suffocated and you lock the door, so we distrust you. Because we are abandoned on the streets and you own all the shade, because we endure floods and you party on pleasure boats, so we don't like you. Because we are silenced and you never stop nagging, because we are threatened and you use violence against us, so we say to you, no. Because we may not choose and you are free to make plans, because we have only sandals and you are free to use rifles, because we must be polite and you have jails, so no and no to you. Because we are the current of the river and you are the stones without heart, so the water will erode away one day the stones. From W.S. Rendra, Indonesia.